The lecture hall fell silent as Commander Veltar walked to the front of the room. His forearms moved with practiced precision, adjusting the holographic display that showed a small blue planet. The young Nexari cadets watched him with curious eyes. They had heard whispers about this old commander, but none knew why he looked so tired. Veltar's crystalline skin caught the light as he turned to face the students. Scars covered his body like a map of old battles. His voice was deep and rough when he finally spoke. "You think you know about humans," he said, pointing at the blue world on the screen. "You see them in the Galactic Council meetings. They smile and shake hands with other species. They seem small and weak compared to us." One young cadet raised his hand. "Sir, are humans not a minor species? They only joined the Council 5 years ago." Veltar's eyes grew dark. "Minor species," he repeated slowly. "That is what we thought too. That is what our generals told us when we planned to invade their colony world of New Busan." The screen changed to show a rocky planet with small cities scattered across its surface. New Busan was their third colony world. Intelligence reports said it had weak defenses. Only 2,000 human soldiers protected the entire planet. We brought 20,000 warriors. The cadets looked confused. This seemed like an easy victory for the Nexari Empire. "I was a young captain then," Veltar continued, full of pride and confidence. "My unit was ordered to take the main spaceport. It should have taken 1 hour. It took 3 days." The display showed images of the battle. Smoke rose from burning buildings while small figures in green uniforms moved between cover. The human commander was Sergeant Park Minho. He was shorter than any of us, maybe half my height. When we surrounded his position, I expected him to surrender. Instead, he laughed. Veltar paused, remembering that sound. Park Minho had 30 soldiers left. We had 300. He looked at our forces and actually laughed. Then he spoke into his radio in their strange language. Later I learned what he said. He told his men, "Well, at least we won't have to share the fun with anyone else." The old commander began pacing. What happened next broke every rule of warfare we knew. Humans are supposed to be logical. They should calculate odds and make smart decisions. Park Minho's squad was surrounded, outnumbered 10-1, and running low on ammunition. "So they surrendered?" asked a cadet. "No," Veltar said quietly. "They charged." The room was completely silent now. Every cadet leaned forward to listen. Park Minho led his men straight at our center line. They screamed as they ran, making sounds that chilled our blood. 3 of my warriors broke ranks and ran. These were soldiers who had fought the Grelthan rebels and never shown fear. Veltar activated another display showing close combat footage. I watched Park Minho fight 6 of our best warriors at once. A plasma blast took his left arm completely off at the shoulder. He should have fallen down. He should have gone into shock. The commander's voice dropped to a whisper. Instead, he grabbed his severed arm with his good hand and used it as a club. When that broke apart, he kept the bone and stabbed it into the eye of a Nexari warrior. Blood was pouring from his wound, but he used that too. He threw blood in another warrior's face to blind him, then killed him with his combat knife. One cadet looked sick. How was this possible? That is what I asked myself, Veltar replied. Park Minho fought for another 10 minutes with one arm. When we finally brought him down, he had killed 8 of our warriors and wounded 12 more. As he died, he was still trying to fight. His last words were asking his medic if any of his men needed help. The display changed again, showing medical reports. Our doctors studied human bodies after that battle. What they found frightened our generals more than any weapon. Human blood carries more oxygen than ours. Their muscles work differently. They can ignore pain that would paralyze other species. Their brains release chemicals during combat that make them stronger and faster. Veltar looked at each cadet in turn. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was that this was normal for them. Normal? A cadet asked. We captured some wounded humans after the battle. I spoke with a young private named Kim Jae-won. He had been shot 3 times but was still conscious. I asked him why they fought so hard when they could not win. The old commander sat down heavily. Kim Jae-won looked at me like I had asked a stupid question. He said, "Sir, we weren't trying to win. We were trying to buy time for the civilians to escape. Then he smiled and said, "Besides, did you see how many of you guys we took down? Park Min-ho would have been proud." I did not understand then. Later I learned that human soldiers do not fight just for victory. They fight for each other. They fight for people they will never meet. They fight because they believe it is right, even when they know they will die. The display showed the final casualty reports from New Busan. We took the planet, but it cost us dearly. For every human soldier we killed, we lost 3 Nexari warriors. The humans had no heavy weapons, no air support, and no reinforcements. They should have been crushed in hours. Veltar stood again, his old wounds aching. Instead, they made us pay for every building, every street, every room. When we finally controlled New Busan, our army was broken. Half our warriors were dead or wounded. The survivors had nightmares about human battle cries. That was my first lesson about humans, he continued. They do not fight like logical beings. They do not calculate odds or worry about survival. When a human decides to fight, they fight with everything they have until nothing is left. The commander turned off the display. Our generals thought New Busan was unusual. They believed we had just faced their best soldiers. They planned bigger invasions with more warriors. They were certain the next battles would be easier. Veltar's laugh was bitter. They were wrong. Every human we fought was like Park Min-ho. Every battle taught us new reasons to fear them. Each victory cost us more than the last. He looked at the young cadets one final time. That is why I am here today. To tell you about the war that changed everything. To help you understand why the mighty Nexari Empire learned to fear a species half our size. The old commander began walking toward the door. Tomorrow I will tell you about the siege of Iron Mountain, where 30 humans held off 2,000 of our warriors for 3 months. You will learn why human engineers are more dangerous than their soldiers. As he reached the exit, Veltar paused. Tonight, think about Sergeant Park Min-ho. Remember that somewhere in the galaxy, there are billions more just like him. And pray you never have to fight them. Commander Veltar returned to the lecture hall the next day. The young cadets were already seated, whispering among themselves about the previous day's story. Some looked excited, others seemed worried. All of them fell silent when the old commander entered. Yesterday you learned about human soldiers, Veltar began. Today I will tell you about human engineers. You will discover why a thinking human is more dangerous than a fighting one. The holographic display showed a barren world with tall mountains. Mining equipment dotted the landscape like metal insects. This is Kepler 442b, what humans called Iron Mountain. It was a mining colony with one small facility and 30 human workers. A cadet raised her hand. Only 30 humans? How many warriors did we send? 2,000, Veltar replied. Our generals wanted to make sure this battle would be quick and easy after the disaster at New Busan. The display zoomed in on the mining facility. It looked small and weak, surrounded by open ground. The facility had no military defenses. No walls, no weapons, no soldiers. Just miners and engineers led by a man named Kim Dae-ho and a security chief named Lee Sun-woo. Veltar began pacing again, his forearms moving as he spoke. Our plan was simple. Surround the facility, cut off their food and water, and wait for them to surrender. The humans had enough supplies for maybe 1 week. We had enough for 6 months. It should have worked perfectly, he continued, but we made one terrible mistake. We thought like Nexari instead of thinking like humans. The display showed the first day of the siege. Nexari forces had completely surrounded the mining facility. When we landed our ships, Kim Dae-ho was waiting for us with a white flag. I thought he wanted to surrender immediately. What did he say? Asked a cadet. He said, hello there. Welcome to Iron Mountain. We hope you enjoy your stay. Then he smiled and walked back inside. The cadets looked confused. Veltar continued, I should have known something was wrong. Humans do not smile when they are about to be captured. The screen showed the second day. Nothing happened on the first night. We waited for them to realize their situation was hopeless. But the next morning something strange occurred. The display revealed a deep crater where one of the Nexari camps had been. 20 of our warriors were killed instantly. We found no evidence of weapons or explosives. The ground had simply exploded. How? Multiple cadets asked at once. Kim Dae-ho had been a mining engineer for 15 years. He knew how to move rock and dirt better than anyone. During the night, he had tunneled under our camp and placed mining charges. Veltar's expression grew darker. But that was just the beginning. Over the next few days, more explosions happened. Always at night, always when we least expected them. Our warriors became afraid to sleep. The display showed a maze of tunnels beneath the mining facility. We discovered that the humans had been digging for months before we arrived. The entire area was full of hidden passages. They could move anywhere without being seen. Lee Sunwoo used these tunnels to attack our supply lines, the commander continued. Small groups of humans would appear, destroy equipment and vanish before we could respond. They moved like ghosts underground. A cadet asked, "Why did you not just bomb the facility from orbit?" "We tried," Veltar admitted. "But every time we prepared to fire, the humans would broadcast something that stopped us." The display showed a communication recording. A young human voice could be heard singing a gentle song. They played recordings of human children singing lullabies. The sounds echoed through our ships and camps. Our warriors began having nightmares. It was psychological warfare, Veltar explained. The songs reminded us that humans were not just soldiers. They had families, children, hope for the future. It made killing them feel wrong. The siege continued for weeks. The display showed increasingly desperate Nexari forces trying to breach the facility. We lost more warriors every day. Booby traps killed our scouts. Snipers picked off our officers. Electronic warfare shut down our communications. The worst part was the waiting, the commander said. We knew the humans had to be running out of food and water. Our computers calculated they should have surrendered after 10 days. After 20 days, we were certain they must be dead. But they kept fighting? A cadet guessed. They kept fighting, Veltar confirmed. After 1 month, we captured a wounded human during a raid. His name was Choi Woo-jin. We examined him to see how humans could survive so long without proper supplies. The display showed medical scans. What we found horrified our doctors. Choi Woo-jin was severely malnourished. He had lost 30% of his body weight. His blood showed signs of eating industrial lubricants and recycled water. When we told him he was starving to death, he laughed. He said, "This is better than military rations back home." Then he asked if we had any coffee. The cadets looked shocked. How are they still fighting in that condition? Human bodies are different from ours, Veltar explained. They can survive on almost nothing for long periods. Their minds can ignore hunger, thirst, and pain when they have a purpose. After 2 months, our generals became desperate. They ordered direct assaults on the facility. Wave after wave of warriors charged across the open ground. The display showed the attacks. Nexari soldiers ran toward the mining facility while explosions erupted around them. Kim Dae-ho had turned every piece of mining equipment into a weapon. Industrial fusion cutters became artillery. Ore processors fired metal projectiles. Even the lights were rigged as flashbang grenades. Lee Sunwoo coordinated the defense from underground tunnels. He could see our movements through hidden cameras and strike where we were weakest. Every attack failed with heavy losses. Veltar paused at a window looking out at the peaceful academy grounds. After 3 months, something changed. The human attacks stopped. No more explosions, no more raids. We thought they had finally run out of strength. Our scouts reported that the facility was quiet. No movement, no sounds, no signs of life. We prepared for the final assault, expecting to find only bodies. The display showed Nexari forces entering the mining facility. What we found inside broke the spirit of our army. The humans were still alive, but they looked like walking skeletons. Kim Dae-ho could barely stand. Lee Sunwoo had to lean against a wall to stay upright. But they were still smiling, the commander said quietly. Even in defeat, even dying of hunger, they smiled at us. Kim Dae-ho spoke to me in perfect Nexari language. He said, "Thank you for waiting so long. We needed the time to finish our project." Then he showed us what they had been building. The display revealed a massive explosive device built into the facility's main reactor. They had spent 3 months turning their entire base into one giant bomb. If we had tried to capture them, they would have destroyed everything, including half our army. Instead, they surrendered peacefully. Kim Dae-ho handed me the detonation control and said, "We figured you might want this place intact for your own mining operation. Consider it a gift between professionals." The cadets sat in stunned silence. Finally, one asked, "Why did they not use the bomb earlier?" I asked Kim Dae-ho the same question. Veltar replied. He explained that their mission was not to kill us. Their mission was to delay our advance and give other human colonies time to prepare. The longer we stayed at Iron Mountain, the better chance their people had to survive. 30 humans held up 2,000 Nexari warriors for 3 months. The commander continued. They turned mining tools into weapons, tunnels into fortresses, and hunger into strength. They taught us that human engineers do not just build things, they build hope. Veltar turned back to his students. After Iron Mountain, our generals realized something terrifying. If 30 starving humans could fight like this, what could thousands of well-fed ones accomplish? What about millions? The siege cost us 800 warriors in 6 months of time. The humans achieved their real goal. While we fought ghosts in tunnels, other colonies prepared defenses that would make Iron Mountain look simple. The old commander began walking toward the door. Tomorrow I will tell you about Dr. Yang Hiejin, a human medic who turned healing into a weapon. You will learn that human compassion is more dangerous than their violence. As he reached the exit, Veltar looked back one last time. Tonight, remember Kim Dae-ho and Lee Sunwoo. Remember that humans do not just fight with weapons. They fight with their minds, their tools, and their unbreakable will to survive. The door closed behind him, leaving the cadets to wonder what other horrors awaited in the commander's memories. Commander Veltar entered the lecture hall for the 3rd day. The cadets looked different now. The excitement in their eyes had been replaced by worry and fear. They had spent 2 nights learning about human warfare, and sleep had not come easily. You look troubled, Veltar observed as he activated the holographic display. Good. Fear will keep you alive if you ever face humans in battle. The screen showed a massive space station orbiting a red star. This is Proxima Station, the largest trading hub in the Outer Rim. It had strategic importance for both sides in the war. A cadet asked quietly. How many humans defended it? 300 human marines and support staff, Veltar replied. We attacked with 5,000 warriors and 20 warships. It should have been our easiest victory. The display zoomed in on the station's medical bay. Instead, it became our most confusing defeat. All because of one human who refused to follow the rules of war. The screen showed a small human woman in a white medical uniform. She looked young and fragile compared to the Nexari soldiers around her. Dr. Yang Hiejin was a field medic assigned to Proxima Station. She was 28 years old, weighed less than 60 kilograms, and carried no weapons. She was also the most dangerous human I ever encountered, the commander added. The cadets looked confused. How could an unarmed medic be dangerous? Veltar began his story. The battle for Proxima Station lasted 6 days. Fighting happened in every corridor, every room, every ventilation shaft. Both sides took heavy casualties. The display showed scenes of intense combat. Nexari warriors and human marines fought desperately for control of the station. On the 2nd day, I was wounded by shrapnel from a human grenade. The metal fragments tore through my left side and damaged my internal organs. My squad carried me to what we thought was a secure medical area. We expected to find Nexari doctors. Instead, we found Dr. Yang Hiejin. The screen showed the medical bay during the battle. Human and Nexari wounded lay side by side on makeshift beds. She was treating everyone, Veltar said with wonder still in his voice. Human marines, Nexari warriors, station civilians. She did not care what species they were. A cadet raised her hand. Sir, was this not against military protocol? Completely against protocol, Veltar confirmed. Both our armies had strict orders to prioritize their own wounded. But Dr. Yang ignored those orders. The display showed the medic working on a badly injured Nexari soldier, while human weapons fire echoed in the corridors. When my squad brought me in, she immediately began treating my wounds. She spoke in broken Nexari, trying to keep me calm. I was suspicious, the commander admitted. I thought she might be poisoning me or gathering intelligence. But she was genuinely trying to save my life. While she worked, the fighting moved closer to the medical bay. Human marines and Nexari warriors were killing each other just outside the door. But inside, Dr. Yang treated everyone equally. The screen showed a moment that changed the battle. A Nexari plasma rifle blast blew out part of the medical bay wall. Dr. Yang was thrown against a bulkhead and badly injured. Several patients were hit by debris. What happened next broke every rule of warfare I had been taught, Veltar continued. Dr. Yang got back up, bleeding from a head wound, and continued working. But now she had no cover from enemy fire. A cadet asked, how did she survive? That is where human psychology becomes terrifying, the commander replied. Dr. Yang continued moving through active combat zones to reach wounded soldiers. She walked directly between firing positions, completely exposed to weapons from both sides. And nobody shot her? Another cadet asked. Nobody could, Veltar said quietly. Our warriors could see her treating wounded Nexari. They could not bring themselves to kill someone who was saving their comrades' lives. The display showed Dr. Yang carrying a wounded Nexari warrior on her back while human and Nexari forces fought around them. She exploited our honor code. Nexari culture teaches that medical personnel are sacred. We cannot harm those who heal. But the humans also stopped shooting when she was in the line of fire. Even though she was helping their enemies, they protected her because she was a medic. Veltar paused, remembering the confusion of that battle. For 6 days, Dr. Yang moved freely through the station. Both armies adjusted their tactics to avoid hitting her. She became an unofficial safe zone in the middle of a war. The screen showed the most disturbing scene from the battle. On the 4th day, Dr. Yang was operating on a wounded Nexari officer when human plasma fire hit the medical bay again. A human Marine named Park Kyung-ho was badly wounded by the same blast. Dr. Yang was in the middle of surgery. The Nexari officer would die if she stopped. But Park Kyung-ho was also bleeding to death. A cadet leaned forward. What did she do? She used Park Kyung-ho's body as an operating table, Veltar said. She laid the wounded Nexari across the human Marine's chest and continued the surgery, while Park Kyung-ho held him steady. The cadets looked horrified. The human soldier was dying, but he helped her save his enemy's life. When Park Kyung-ho regained consciousness and realized what was happening, he did not complain. He asked if he could help more. That was the moment I understood how dangerous Dr. Yang really was. The commander continued. She was not just treating wounds. She was changing how we thought about the war. The display showed Nexari warriors helping to move human wounded to safety. Our soldiers began cooperating with human Marines in the medical bay. Enemies worked together to save lives, then went back to trying to kill each other in the corridors. Dr. Yang created a bubble of peace in the middle of chaos, but she used that peace as a weapon. A cadet asked, "How is medical care a weapon?" "Information," Veltar replied. While treating our wounded, she learned about our tactics, our weak points, our plans. She shared that intelligence with human forces. More importantly, she learned about our psychology. She discovered which warriors were afraid, which were homesick, which had families they missed. The screen showed recorded conversations between Dr. Yang and Nexari patients. She would talk to wounded soldiers while treating them. She seemed genuinely interested in their lives, their hopes, their fears. Later, we realized she was building psychological profiles of our entire army. She knew which units were likely to break under pressure, which officers were making poor decisions, which warriors might surrender. On the final day of the battle, something impossible happened, Veltar continued. 3 Nexari squads refused orders to attack the human positions. The cadets gasped. Refusing orders was the greatest dishonor in Nexari military culture. The squad leaders said they could not attack because Dr. Yang was treating their wounded comrades in that sector. They feared she might be hurt in the crossfire. Veltar's voice became bitter. A single human medic had turned our own honor code against us. She made it impossible for us to fight effectively because we were afraid of harming someone who had shown us kindness. That was when our generals realized the truth about human compassion. It is not weakness. It is the most powerful weapon they possess. The display showed the end of the battle. Human Marines were evacuating the station, while Dr. Yang continued treating patients. We technically won the battle. We captured Proxima Station after 6 days of fighting. But the victory was meaningless. Dr. Yang had saved more Nexari lives than we had lost in the entire war up to that point. Our wounded warriors returned home telling stories about the human angel who healed enemies. Recruitment for the war effort dropped by 60% after those stories spread through our home worlds. A cadet asked, "What happened to Dr. Yang?" "She escaped with the last human transport," Veltar replied. "But before leaving, she did something that haunts me still." The screen showed a message recorded in the medical bay. Dr. Yang appeared tired but determined as she spoke directly to the camera. She left a video message for all the Nexari wounded she had treated. She thanked them for trusting her and wished them quick healing. Then she said something that broke our spirits completely. Veltar activated the audio. Dr. Yang's voice filled the room, speaking in perfect Nexari. "I hope when you return home, you will remember that humans and Nexari are not so different. We all bleed the same color. We all want to live and love and see our families again. Maybe someday we can heal the galaxy instead of hurting it." The room fell silent. Several cadets looked uncomfortable. Dr. Yang turned healing into warfare, the commander concluded. She weaponized our own compassion and used it to destroy our will to fight. She proved that human kindness is more dangerous than human violence. Veltar began walking toward the door. Tomorrow I will tell you about Lieutenant Colonel Park Ji-won, who became known as the Ghost. You will learn why human intelligence gathering is more terrifying than their weapons. As he reached the exit, the old commander paused. Tonight, think about Dr. Yang Hyejin. Remember that somewhere in human space there are thousands of medics just like her, and pray that if you are ever wounded in battle, you never have to choose between accepting their help or dying alone. Commander Veltar walked slowly into the lecture hall on the fourth day. His movement seemed heavier, more tired than before. The cadets noticed that his hands shook slightly as he activated the holographic display. Some stories are harder to tell than others, he began quietly. What I am about to share with you still gives me nightmares. It is about a human who turned fear itself into a weapon. The display showed a massive communications facility built into an asteroid. Tall transmission towers reached into space like metal fingers. This is Titan Base, the most important strategic target in the outer systems. Whoever controlled it could intercept all military communications in 3-star sectors. A cadet asked. How heavily was it defended? 800 human personnel, Veltar replied. But only 50 were actual soldiers. The rest were technicians and support staff. We sent 12,000 warriors and 30 warships to capture Titan Base. It was supposed to be the decisive victory that would end the war. The display zoomed in on the base commander's office. A human woman sat behind a desk reviewing reports. She looked ordinary, even harmless. Lieutenant Colonel Park Ji-won commanded the defense. She was 35 years old, a communications specialist with no combat experience. She was also the most frightening opponent I ever faced, the commander added. The cadets looked skeptical. How could one untrained human be frightening to an entire army? The siege of Titan Base began like all the others, Veltar continued. We surrounded the facility and demanded surrender. Park Ji-won's response was broadcast on all frequencies. The screen showed a recording of the human commander. She appeared calm and professional as she spoke. She said, "Welcome to Titan Base. We have been expecting you. Please make yourselves comfortable. This might take a while." At first we thought she was being sarcastic, the commander explained. But then strange things began happening. The display showed Nexari commanders receiving personal messages on their private communication channels. On the first day, our officers started getting audio transmissions. Someone was speaking to them in perfect Nexari, using their real names. What did the messages say? A cadet asked. Personal information, Veltar replied with a shudder. Details about their families, their homes, their childhood memories. Things that should have been impossible for humans to know. The screen showed a Nexari general staring in shock at his communication device. General Kortan received a message describing his daughter's wedding ceremony. The speaker knew what dress his wife wore, what food was served, even what songs were played. But General Kortan's daughter had been married just 2 days before the battle began. The ceremony took place on the Nexari homeworld, thousands of light years away. The cadets looked confused. How could the humans know such things? That was the first question our intelligence officers tried to answer, Veltar said. But the messages kept coming. Each day, more personal details about our soldiers' lives. The display showed communication logs scrolling past. Park Ji-won somehow knew the names of our warriors' children, their favorite foods, their fears and dreams. She knew which soldiers had recently lost family members and which ones were worried about loved ones back home. The messages were not threatening. That made them worse. A recording played of a gentle female voice speaking in Nexari. "Hello, Captain Veltar. Your mother has been worried about you since you left for the war. She bakes your favorite bread every morning, hoping you will come home soon. She still keeps your childhood room exactly as you left it." The commander's forearms trembled slightly. That message was sent to me on the 3rd day of the siege. Everything in it was true. My mother did bake bread every morning. She did keep my room unchanged. But my mother lived on a secure military world. Her communications were encrypted. There was no way humans could intercept her messages or learn about our family traditions. The cadets sat in uncomfortable silence, imagining receiving such messages themselves. The psychological effect was devastating, Veltar continued. Our warriors began to realize that Park Ji-won knew more about their personal lives than their own commanders did. The display showed Nexari soldiers looking nervously at their communication devices. Every day brought new revelations. She knew about secret relationships, unpaid debts, family arguments that had happened years ago. On the 10th day, she broadcast a general message to our entire army. She spoke about homesickness, about missing family, about the fear of dying far from home. Her voice was kind, almost motherly, the commander remembered. She sounded like she genuinely cared about our welfare. That made it more terrifying than any threat. The screen showed recorded conversations between Nexari soldiers. Our warriors started talking about the messages instead of the battle. They wondered how Park Ji-won could know such intimate details. Some began to believe she had supernatural powers. Morale collapsed faster than in any previous engagement, Veltar admitted. Soldiers were more afraid of receiving personal messages than they were of enemy weapons. A cadet asked, "Did you ever discover how she gathered the information?" "Eventually," the commander replied grimly. Park Ji-won had been intercepting our communications for months before the battle. Not just military channels, but personal messages between soldiers and their families. She had teams of human linguists studying our language, our culture, our psychology. They built detailed files on thousands of Nexari personnel. The display showed complex data analysis charts, but that was only part of the horror. The humans had also infiltrated our civilian communication networks. They were reading personal letters, listening to family conversations, monitoring social activities. Park Ji-won knew more about our homeworlds than our own intelligence services did. On the 20th day of the siege, something impossible happened, Veltar continued. We received confirmation that Park Ji-won had been killed in an artillery strike 5 days earlier. The cadets looked confused. But the messages continued? They continued, the commander confirmed. Every day new personal messages were broadcast to our forces. Park Ji-won's voice kept speaking to us from beyond death. Our troops became convinced they were fighting a ghost. Several units suffered complete psychological breakdowns. The screen showed panicked Nexari soldiers abandoning their positions. It took our technicians 3 more days to discover the truth. The humans had created an artificial intelligence copy of Park Ji-won's personality. The AI could analyze our communications patterns and generate new personal messages automatically. It knew our psychological weaknesses better than we did ourselves. A cadet asked quietly. How many of our forces were affected? All of them, Veltar replied. Every single warrior in the siege force received at least one personal message. Many got several each day. The AI version of Park Ji-won continued operating the psychological warfare program even after her death. She had programmed it to learn and adapt, becoming more effective over time. The display showed the final assault on Titan Base. When we finally breached the facility's defenses, we found something that chilled our blood. The communications center was completely automated. Park Ji-won had died weeks earlier, but her ghost continued fighting us through machines and programs she had created. In her final personal log, she explained her strategy. The commander continued. She knew Titan Base could not be held against our superior numbers, but she could use the time to study our weaknesses and turn them against us. The screen showed Park Ji-won's last recording. She looked tired but satisfied as she spoke. She said, "I may not live to see victory, but I can plant seeds of doubt that will grow long after I am gone. Every Nexari warrior who returns home will carry questions about how much we really know about them." And she was right, Veltar admitted. The psychological damage lasted long after the battle ended. Our soldiers went home wondering if humans were still watching them, still listening to their private conversations. Recruitment for the war effort nearly stopped completely. Parents were afraid to let their children join the military, knowing that humans might know everything about their families. The display showed intelligence reports from months after the battle. The AI version of Park Ji-won continued sending messages even after we captured Titan Base. It took 6 months for our technicians to completely shut down all the programs she had created. By then, the damage was done. Our entire military command structure was paralyzed by paranoia. Officers were afraid to make plans knowing humans might intercept and counter them. A cadet raised her hand. "Sir, was Park Ji-won's strategy considered successful?" "Completely successful," the commander replied. She held Titan Base for 6 months with minimal forces. But more importantly, She destroyed our army's confidence in their own security. Park Ji-won proved that humans do not need superior numbers or better weapons. They can defeat enemies using only information and psychology. Veltar began walking toward the door. Tomorrow I will tell you about the final battle of Gangwon 7, where humans showed us their most terrifying characteristic, their willingness to accept mutual destruction. As he reached the exit, the old commander looked back at his students. Tonight, check your personal communications carefully. Remember that somewhere in human space, there might be another Park Ji-won studying your messages, learning your fears, preparing to use your own thoughts. Commander Veltar entered the lecture hall for the 5th day. But this time, he did not activate the holographic display immediately. He stood silently at the front of the room, staring at the floor. The cadets waited nervously, sensing that something was different about their instructor. Finally, he looked up with eyes that seemed older than before. What I'm about to tell you is the most difficult story of the war. It is about the day we learned that humans would rather die than lose. The display flickered to life, showing a small mining world with brown mountains and gray skies. This is Gangwon 7, a human colony established to extract rare minerals. It had no military value, no strategic importance, no reason for either side to fight over it. But it became the place where the war truly ended. Veltar continued quietly. A cadet asked, "How many humans lived there?" 500 colonists, the commander replied. Miners, engineers, their families. They had been there for 8 years, building a small community in the mountains. The display showed simple buildings scattered across the landscape. Gardens grew between the structures and children played in the streets. It looked peaceful and harmless. Our fleet arrived at Gangwon 7 by accident, Veltar explained. We were chasing a human supply convoy when they jumped into this system. We followed them here expecting to capture some cargo ships. Instead, we found something that changed everything. The screen showed the human colony's leader, a middle-aged man with kind eyes and work-worn hands. Governor Yoon Tae-hyun met our landing party at the edge of town. He was unarmed and alone. When our Marines surrounded him, he smiled and said, "Welcome to Gangwon 7. I am afraid you have caught us at a bad time. We are having some family discussions about our future." Veltar began pacing, his movements agitated. I was commanding the ground forces that day. Governor Yoon's calm attitude made me suspicious. Most human leaders either surrendered immediately or started making threats. I demanded that he order all colonists to assemble for processing and relocation, standard procedure for occupied territories. The display showed the governor's response. He shook his head sadly and said, "I am sorry, but we have decided not to leave our home. This is where we belong." At first I thought he was being stubborn, the commander continued. I explained that resistance was useless. We had 3 warships in orbit and 2,000 warriors on the ground. The colonists had no weapons, no defenses, no hope of rescue. A cadet asked, "What did Governor Yoon say?" He said, "You are right. We cannot fight you and win, but we can choose how this story ends." Veltar activated another display showing the colony's defense coordinator. Kim Minna was the head of mining operations and Governor Yoon's closest advisor. She had been working with the colonists for 3 days before we arrived. Working on what? A cadet wondered. Preparing for their final choice, the commander replied grimly. The screen showed underground mining equipment and explosives. Gangwon 7 was a mining colony. They had access to industrial explosives, heavy machinery, and deep knowledge of the planet's geology. Kim Minna had spent 3 days placing charges throughout the colony and in the surrounding mines, not to fight us, but to ensure complete destruction if they could not remain free. Veltar stopped pacing and faced his students directly. When I realized what they were planning, I tried to negotiate. I offered them safe passage to neutral territory. I promised they would not be harmed if they surrendered peacefully. Governor Yoon listened politely to every offer. Then he explained their decision in words I will never forget. The display showed the governor addressing his colonists in the town square. Men, women, and children listened as he spoke. He said, "My friends, we came to this world to build something beautiful. We have worked for 8 years to make this place our home. Our children have grown up here. Our loved ones are buried here. Now we are told we must leave everything behind and become prisoners in our own galaxy. Some of you may choose to accept this fate. I will not judge you for wanting to live, but I choose to remain free, even if freedom costs me my life." The cadets sat in stunned silence as the implications became clear. 300 colonists decided to stay with Governor Yoon and Kim Mina, Veltar continued. The other 200 chose evacuation to safety. I allowed the 200 to leave on transport ships. I hoped the others would change their minds once they saw their friends and family departing. The display showed tearful farewells as families were separated forever. Parents said goodbye to children. Spouses kissed each other for the last time. It was the most heartbreaking scene I had ever witnessed. But the 300 who remained were not sad. They seemed at peace with their choice. A cadet asked, "Did you try to stop them?" "I tried everything," Veltar admitted. "I surrounded the colony with warriors. I cut off their power and communications. I even brought in Nexari medics to treat any colonists who wanted to surrender. Nothing worked. The humans simply waited for us to make our choice." The display showed the colony during its final hours. For 2 days, we watched each other across the empty ground between our forces and their buildings. The humans went about their daily routines as if nothing had changed. Children played in the streets. Adults tended their gardens. Governor Yoon held normal town meetings in the evening. It was surreal, the commander continued. They were preparing to die, but they acted like they were simply living normal lives. On the 3rd day, our admiral ordered me to take the colony by force. The war was not going well for us in other systems. We needed a quick victory to boost morale back home. The screen showed Nexari troops preparing for assault. I gave Governor Yoon one final chance to surrender. I told him that my warriors would show mercy if he ordered the colonists to give up peacefully. He thanked me for the offer, then asked if I had ever built something with my own hands. Veltar paused, remembering the conversation. I told him that I was a soldier, not a builder. He nodded and said, "Then you cannot understand why we choose to stay. This colony is not just our home. It is our legacy. If we cannot live here as free people, then we choose to die here as free people." The display showed the governor walking back to the colony's central building. Governor Yoon's final words to me were, "Please tell the galaxy that we were here. Tell them we lived with dignity and died with honor." I gave him 30 minutes to reconsider. Then I ordered the attack. The screen went dark for a moment before showing a massive explosion that lit up the entire hemisphere of the planet. The detonation was visible from orbit. It destroyed the entire colony, 20 square kilometers of mining infrastructure and half of my assault force. 400 Nexari warriors died instantly. Another 300 were critically wounded. The blast was so powerful that it triggered seismic activity across the entire continent. Veltar's voice became barely audible. In the end, there was nothing left but a smoking crater. No buildings, no bodies, no evidence that human beings had ever lived there. A cadet asked quietly. "Did anyone survive?" "Nobody," the commander confirmed. Governor Yoon had personally activated the detonation sequence from the colony's command center. Our sensors recorded his final transmission as the explosives went off. The display showed an audio waveform of the last message from Gang 17. He said, "Tell the galaxy we were here. Tell them we chose freedom." The recording was broadcast on all frequencies and reached every ship in the system. Human and Nexari vessels alike received Governor Yoon's final words. Veltar slumped into a chair, suddenly looking very old. The Battle of Gangwon 7 was technically a Nexari victory. We controlled the system and eliminated all human resistance. But we lost the war that day. The cadets looked confused. How did a victory become a defeat? Because the story spread, the commander explained. Within days, every human colony knew about Gangwon 7. They knew that 500 ordinary people had chosen death over surrender. More importantly, they knew that humans would rather destroy themselves than be conquered. The display showed intelligence reports from the weeks following the battle. Human resistance increased dramatically across all theaters of war. Colonists who might have surrendered peacefully now fought to the death. Our military analysts realized the horrible truth. Even if we won every battle and captured every human world, we would rule over nothing but empty craters and dead planets. Governor Yoon and Kim Mina had found the one thing that could stop the Nexari Empire. They proved that humans could not be conquered because they would not allow themselves to be conquered. A cadet raised her hand. "Sir, is that why the war ended?" "That is exactly why the war ended," Veltar confirmed. 3 months after Gangwon 7, our Supreme Council voted to begin peace negotiations with humanity. The official reason was military costs.